Listen up! There is a storm coming! Like nothing you have ever seen!
Well, isn't that interesting? Not sure whether or not you can hear me, folks. You certainly can't see me. Let me just go into my settings here and see if I can find my camera working correctly. It was working, then it wasn't. How interesting. Oh, I don't even know whether or not you can hear me. Aussie Sue, good morning, darling. Can you actually hear me? You may not be able to see me, but I don't know whether or not you can actually hear me. How weird is this? The camera was working perfectly until I hit the start button. That's a bit weird. Drop back to the integrate. It will not go to my normal camera.
Didn't turn it off again.
No, haven't turned it off again. Not working at all. All right, folks. Well, maybe that's a sign for today. You can hear me, but you can't see me. That's probably God, looking after you, truth be told. But it might mean you can't see anything else. G'day, Gay from Oklahoma. Lovely to have you from Oklahoma. Beautiful. How's things going in Oklahoma? I have heard some very interesting stories coming out of the USA in the last 24 hours or so. There have been some significant stories coming out of Australia as well. Let me see whether or not you can see this. Yep, looks like you might be able to. I'll remove your comment there, Gay. Thank you for logging in from Oklahoma. That's great. This is the Courier Mail, Queensland's daily newspaper. The death rate has gone up significantly in Queensland, and I'm pretty confident that you'll find that that's the same case all around. These are baby deaths. These are deaths counted from birth to 1 month after birth. Currently, some of the figures are absolutely appalling, beyond appalling. Let's have a look. The statistics don't lie. 19.9 deaths out of 1,000 in the Northern Territory. That's deaths per 1,000 births, deaths within 1 month of birth. In Queensland, that rate has risen to 11.5. That's 11 and a half babies out of every 1,000 die for mysterious reasons as yet to be explained in Queensland. That's horrendous. It's horrendous for every state. Tasmania, 10.4. Western Australia, 8.2. New South Wales, 7. ACT, 6.9. 6.8 in Victoria, and 4.6 in South Australia. 19.9 deaths out of every 1,000 births in the Northern Territory and 11.5 in Queensland. My God, folks, that is horrendous stuff. And we need to be asking questions. Now, a lot of questions are being asked of politicians, of legislators, of bureaucrats. Are they answering any of those questions? Well, there are some answers that are coming out, but not through politicians. The questions are being asked in courts. In South Australia, we spoke about young Daniel Shepherd a couple of days ago, who's had a win there in the tribunal. He will be paid out or paid a form of a wage and all his medical bills from his employer after they forced him to get a third jab after he was exposed in the first two and suffered adverse events after the first two. It's now been upheld in that tribunal. I'm saying tribunal because it wasn't a court, it's a tribunal. That means that there will be an appeal process, and this isn't over yet for young Daniel. However, it is encouraging that in New South Wales, another case has come to light there, and it is also being treated in a similar vein. Now, I know a number of people in Queensland who have had significant adverse events or adverse reactions after their jabs. Only now are some of them starting to wake up to the fact that it is an adverse reaction. It's just not something that happen naturally. These people are now starting to ask questions. So we've got 2 cases now that have exposed the liability of employers who forced their employees to be jabbed. Now, unless your employer has a medical degree or a vast secret knowledge of big pharma and medical practices, then your employer was never in a position to demand anything from you. Now, your employer will rely on the fact that the government said they had to make you do it. It was mandated. The government said you had to do it. No employee could come to work without it. Well, that too was unlawful in so many ways. So many ways. And now, for some reason, in our tribunals and hopefully soon our courts, we're starting to see that the employers have no defense in this argument. Their defense of, well, the government told me so, is not a defense, and the government will not support them in their defense. Now, we warned employers of this years ago when they started enforcing the mandate on their employees. We warned them, we told them that if you do this, you will be liable, personally and professionally. So if you are one of those employers who forced your employees to get jabbed, if they didn't, you were going to sack them, and you were going to blame the government for sacking them, not your weak lack of balls to stand up to a simpering, pathetic government being paid by Big Pharma. Absolutely bloody pathetic. Needs to end. Needs to end. And there'll be a lot more of that coming up over, well, I'm sure, the days, weeks, and months ahead, probably years ahead. There is a pretty significant website that you can go and have a look at. It's a Substack, actually. So if you want to go and have a look at Matt's Method is a human rights site, and there is a fellow there named Peter who's put up a number of videos, and he is a human rights lawyer. I've reached out to see whether or not he'll come on and have a chat with us, but he will be in a much better position to explain what your position is as a potentially jab-affected employee, and will be able to explain the position of your employer, which, well, largely now looks like a reaming coming your way, because the government, like we told you years ago, when they started, saying that you had to do this, and you said, "Oh yes, we'll do that for you, no worries, government," we told you you would be made responsible. You have committed crimes against humanity. It's that simple. And you think the government's going to protect you? Well, we're now seeing in the court cases the government isn't protecting you. The government is just saying, well, hey, listen, we didn't tell you you had to do it. Mandatory isn't compulsory, That's what the government said. Mandatory is not compulsory. Well, yeah, it's mandatory. Because you didn't understand the definition of the word mandatory as an employer. Doesn't give you any kind of absolution. If you're too stupid to understand what the word mandatory means, then you probably shouldn't be running a business. You certainly shouldn't be in charge of other people and have control over their lives. And those people are going to come for you, provided they live long enough, because there's going to be a bunch of lawyers in this that are going to try and eke this out. Think of it like the asbestos court cases from years ago with Hardy plank. What was that stuff? The asbestos planking. Now, there was a deliberate legal strategy to stretch that case or those cases out for as long as possible, so that those people who brought the cases against the company were dead before they got to court. It's a really, really, really good way of not losing a case, when those people who are bringing it against you die and can't keep bringing in information forward. That's what they're going to do with this too, right? And there will be shed loads of doctors who will still tell you lies to your face. You know, the doctors will say, oh, we didn't have a choice. We had to do this. No, you had a choice. The choice was, do I or do I not accept the bribe for every shot I'm going to stick in someone's arm? That was the choice you had, doctors and nurses. That was the choice. Not that, oh, well, we had to do it because the government told us, or the government, well, we'd lose our job. Well, it's okay. You didn't lose your job. Plenty of people have lost their lives through your incompetence, your lack of balls. Plenty of them. Maybe some amongst you, because God knows there are plenty of you who have been stupid enough to suck it all up and get it into you as well. But I wonder whether or not you've got the same juice we have. I wonder whether or not you were given the same sort of stuff as the employees from the pharmaceutical companies, who, funnily enough, seem to be doing really well, not having any problems at all. Or maybe you were lucky enough to be part of the 11,000 politicians and elite between Australia and New Zealand who didn't have to get jabbed. Politicians and the elites didn't get jabbed. They told you they would, but they didn't. Many politicians stood up on television and you saw a needle supposedly plunge into their arm, except they were prop needles. The needle itself went back up into the syringe, not into the arm. We've seen Joe Biden's particular inoculation actually get squirted out behind his arm at one stage. When are we going to wake up, folks? When are we going to wake up? When are we going to stand up? That is the $64,000 question. When are we going to stand up? And what is the best way to stand? I know many of us are. You know, we could have done with a few more supporting the farmers here a couple of days ago in Canberra. But I understand. It's a Tuesday. The price of fuel is bloody hard, and the government makes it very difficult for you to get anywhere, do anything. I mean, even staying in Epic, it's $40 a night if you want a powered site. I think it's $20 a night if you're happy to sleep in a tent on the ground somewhere. But that's a lot of money for some people. And if you're going to come and commit to coming to Canberra, well, in most cases, it's more than a day's travel for you to get here. So these things need to be organised. I personally don't know why we need to come to Canberra to protest. We could shut down every capital city and have better effect. The only people you're trying to inconvenience in Canberra are the bureaucrats, the support staff, the politicians, and the poor bastards who have to run little shops around here to, feed them, keep the restaurants open. But Canberra's a very small city, and it's a long way from anywhere of importance. A long way. It's the wrong place to be having these protests, in my opinion. Farmers didn't need to come to Canberra. Farmers don't need to come to Canberra. There is plenty of good things farmers can do, and not risk machinery, not risk property, not risk stock, not risk hay, not risk anything. There is a heap of stuff farmers can do if they're dead serious about being heard. Because I don't think, aside from the actual words being heard the other day, I don't think anything's going to happen. I don't think there is anything that, even with the best intentions of some politicians, I don't think they're able to actually win this fight because the forces arrayed against them from the other side are just too well bribed. And that starts with the politicians and works its way through the bureaucracy all the way down. They are bloody pathetic. So, yeah. There are some sad things happening in the world. I'm going to show you a couple of pictures. This is something I'd never heard of until this morning. This is lorikeet paralysis syndrome. Now, interestingly, this isn't it is a relatively new phenomenon. It was only discovered in 2010, interestingly. Just between you and me. Go back and have a look when they started cloud seeding operations in earnest in Australia. I think it was 2009. Just as an aside, may have nothing to do with this, but in 2010, parakeet paralysis syndrome has been discovered between Bundaberg and Grafton in New South Wales. Thousands of birds fall out of the sky and die. Not necessarily when they hit the ground.
Isn't Grafton where they grow all the pot?
Galactic Larrikin Rob is with me. He says, isn't Grafton where they grow all the pot? I think somewhere between there and the border, maybe. I don't know. I wouldn't know anything about that.
Oh, I just wondering if that had to do with lorikeet paralysis.
Oh, yes. Well, apparently the flowers can have a problem. It could be feed. They thought that might be alcohol poisoning because they're eating mango skins and all that sort of stuff. But they've tested for that. Nothing of that. Nothing of the sort. In fact, they do not know why these birds are falling out of the sky. And they are falling out of the sky in their thousands. Now, it happens every year, apparently, from 2010 to today. Every year between October and June, so over that crossover period of the wet, is when this happens. And thousands of birds are lost. I'm not aware that many of them are nursed back to life. The information that I've seen doesn't suggest that too many of them survive. I know that Australia Zoo and a couple of universities are doing research into it. Is anybody trying to correlate the fact that our cloud seeding began in earnest in 2009, and then 2010 starts, and then from late 2010, October 2010 to June 2011, all these birds start dying? I'm not saying there is a connection. I'm saying, shouldn't it be investigated? Shouldn't we see this? And it's not just lorikeets. We've seen all around the world at different times various huge bird loss over cities. Literally birds falling out of the sky, plummeting into the ground around Trafalgar Square. Why aren't people looking at the correlation between what's being sprayed and what's happening to the birds? I also, and I'm not sure if I've spoken about this in the show or I've just done it because I've spoken to a lot of people in the last week. But one of the things that we also need to be, I think, considering going forward in that regard is if there is a way to test for this, if there is a way to show that there is, I don't know, something in their bodies, in their blood. I don't know. I'm not a vet. I don't know how you study this, but there must be something that is showing up in an anomaly when they are autopsying these birds and testing things like liver and kidney and all that sort of stuff. Something has to be showing up that is different to what they know in the past. They're just not telling us, maybe, or they haven't discovered it yet. Speaking of not discovered it yet, we did talk about Malcolm Roberts, I think, and his request for people to provide scientific proof that cloud seeding happens in Australia. That he has come out and stated, I believe, that there is absolutely no cloud seeding operations run by Australians, organised by Australians, running in Australia. There is no cloud seeding legislation. There is no cloud seeding laws enabling it or anything like that. And I think for the most part, he's 100% correct. What he hasn't done, and I would ask him to go and have a look at doing, and maybe you can email him and let him know that this is a place where he should be looking. He needs to look to the agreements signed by the Australian governments from Turnbull and possibly even prior to Turnbull's period on. In fact, certainly from prior to Turnbull's period. We need to go and look at the agreements signed by the Australian government with the UN, because cloud seeding is done on a global basis. It is not done on a country by country basis. We have signed up to it through the UN. So if we have American, let's just say we have American military aircraft landing in Australia, being refueled and restocked with whatever chemicals they are using, they are doing that on a UN contract. Now, there might be other aircraft that come to Australia and help do this from various different other countries. Do I believe that Australia has, jets capable of spraying all this stuff? No, I don't. I don't think we've had to go to the expense. We've got too many big friends with big aircraft and lots of them. Oh, yeah, you don't have to build anything. We'll just fly the jet over and send it back. You just put the fuel in it when it gets here to fly it back again. That's the sort of stuff we need to be thinking about. We need to be looking at. It's I think there is, well, how can you ignore the correlation? That's all I would say. Here's something else to have a bit of a look at. Trump's calling for Biden to debate him immediately at the moment. Of course, he can't do it because he can't talk, says Trump. So the dates for the presidential debates, September 16, October 1 and October 9. There'll be a VP debate on September 25. Will there be debates? I don't even think there's going to be an election, folks. So we'll just wait and see what happens with that one. I mentioned that we're still in Canberra. I'm catching up with some people a little later today for just one last meeting before I hit the road. I am planning on heading off to the War Memorial at some stage a little later on. Well, actually, shortly after I finish this. And I hopefully will do a live from the War Memorial, but that will only be on the Nun 2K channel. Because YouTube have still left that one up, but they've now taken down Voice of Freedom as well. That one's been banned. And yet Nun 2K is still going. I don't understand how they've missed that, but anyway, don't expect Nun 2K to keep going, folks. Rumble is the place where we will be streaming continually. And if you can't find us on any of the YouTube channels, make sure you search The Voice of Freedom on Rumble. You'll also find me on Facebook. You'll also find a Facebook group called Wake Up, Wake Up. There is some new developments on the Twitter and what's the other? Instagram channels where we can actually live stream now. I haven't got all the details to be able to do that yet. I'm still going through the process, but yeah, why not? I'll get on Twitter and give it a go, or X or whatever it's called these days. Don't expect me to interact on it. I haven't figured out how do you reply to anything on there yet, but I'll put the program up if that's what you want. But I do expect that Nun 2K will shuffle off this mortal coil in the not too distant future. YouTube are, well, not very smart, but very crooked, and they'll get it sorted eventually. So yeah, it'll then simply be, we're on Project. Oh, are we on Project Matilda? I think we are on Project Matilda right now too. Now that I think about it, let me have a look. Oh, maybe I need to start that. Yes, I probably should have hit that button a little earlier for the people on Project Matilda. So yeah, Project Matilda is a platform that Daniel in Western Australia has been working on now for a few years, and it is a great product. If you haven't joined Project Matilda, go and check it out, projectmatilda.com. It's a bit like Facebook, a bit like Gab. It's a community, though, that doesn't censor you unless you are putting forward child porn and associated other bits and pieces, which we will have nothing to do with. But for the most part, if you have an opinion, you'll be allowed to share it. You'll be allowed to speak on it. You'll be able to extrapolate upon it, and you'll be able to grow an audience around it. So go and check out Project Matilda. Obviously, if you're planning on doing stupid things and saying stupid things, you won't be there very long. But Daniel is a great guy, and looking forward to growing our relationship with Project Matilda. And others over the mid to long term. Cairns News is another one that I would encourage you to go and have a look at, cairnsnews.org. Always great stories and very, very truthful. Great news, great bunch of people who contribute there too, and I'm lucky enough to be catching up with a few of them from time to time. They're a bit separated, so as I travel around, I'll run into them, and really looking forward to seeing more of what we can develop out of our Cairns News relationship. We'll hopefully do a lot more live streaming, And we'll see what happens. What's John saying? Rabbito. John's calling for a national strike to remove the belligerent occupier masquerading as the government. Yep, good on him. How will a strike remove those bastards? How will a strike remove the government? How will a strike remove? I'm asking myself the question. I'm not repeating it for you. I'm asking myself, how will a strike remove the government? How will a national strike remove the government? What impact would a national strike have on the government other than they'd have to come out and say something about us all on strike? I don't think that's going to work. What would work is if we stopped paying the government. We stopped paying their taxes. That would work. What would work is if, all that old farm machinery that's lying around rusting in paddocks, just dropping iron back into the soil, miraculously appeared in the middle of the Hume Highway, the Bruce Highway, the Pacific Highway, the Newell Highway, and stopped them. Lindsay Fox is never going to let his trucks be involved in a protest to help us. So we don't ask him. You stop those highways, you stop this country. The phones will start ringing in Canberra because when Lindsay Fox's trucks stop moving, that costs him thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars an hour. An hour. The supply chains are broken. The supermarkets will be, God. But the people will be heard. The government will have no choice. I don't know what hope a strike will do. Woohoo! We all get a day off. Fuck off. We don't need a day off. We need truth in government, honesty in government, people working for us in the government. We don't need a foreign-owned corporation dictating to us. And that's what we've got. It's pathetic. Just pathetic. The way that Labor, and for the most part the Liberals, dodged the farmers the other day. There were a couple of Liberals there. But it was disgusting. We need more. We need to do better. We need not to protest, John, I'm sorry. We need something bigger. A protest, walking around the streets. Well, okay. That might have an effect. It looks good on the cameras for a while, but I remember a protest here in Canberra where maybe 2 million people turned up. That didn't do much. I remember a big protest in Melbourne, which John claims he was significantly involved with organising. I remember seeing Darren Bergwerf in the front line of that protest out in front of the CFMEU offices in Melbourne, fighting for us against the pack of cowering bikies who were hiding inside the CFMEU office. But that was years ago. And what benefit did that protest give us? That strike. It got people shot with rubber bullets. It got people sprayed. And 2 years later, where are we? So I don't know. Would a strike work? I don't know. I don't think it would. Stopping the country. That'll work. It happened once back in the late 70s, early 80s. There was a truckie strike. But back in the 70s and 80s, the truckies were predominantly owner-operated. There weren't huge trucking company operations. There were some, certainly, but they were growing. All the truckies wanted was a better pay deal. They wanted better hours. They wanted to be able to have a sleep on the road and not have to drive 24 hours straight. There might have been a few other issues. Now, I remember that strike. I was a kid doing a paper round at the time. And in a small country Victorian town, on my paper route one morning, I had to cross the highway that went through town. And bugger me dead, there were 20 trucks pulled up. And they stayed there for a couple of weeks. Little fire going. They didn't, upset the locals, but they didn't let any other truck through. Nobody acting under commerce was allowed through. If you were a farmer driving your ute, you just had to go into town to do a few things, no problems whatsoever. But if you were a semi-trailer trying to undermine the other semi-trailer drivers, you were stopped any way they could. And they were very effective. It was a wonderfully effective protest. It went for about 8 or 9 weeks from memory. It might have gone longer. The Hume Highway brought to a standstill at Albury from memory. They blocked it both ways. The Newell was the same. The Bruce Highway was the same. And things happened. The truckies actually got heard. They got results. They got better safety protections. Now, did they get enough? Maybe not. But it happened. It's clear that those masquerading as government are not helping us. They are not here to help us, the people of Australia. They are simply here to feather the nests of their foreign corporation owners and to live large on their largesse that's been stolen from us. It has to end. How do we make it end? We need solutions, folks. We don't need to talk about what they've done and how they're doing it to us again and woe is us. We need a solution. We know their plan. We know their modus operandi. We know their end game. It's got to stop. And only you and the person beside you and the person beside them, standing beside the person beside them and me and everybody else, can make that happen. People have got to wake up. So, folks, that's my thoughts for this morning. I don't know that I'll get a show out tonight. Last night was another one. We wound up having dinner last night with some wonderful folks here in Canberra. I'm catching up with some more people today, and I don't know whether or not that'll lead into dinner. I'm going to the War Memorial to have a look and pay my respects, though. So if you happen to be in Canberra and you're wandering around today, that's where you'll find me. And a little later on this afternoon, meetings with a few people in town. The plan is to hit the road tomorrow morning, and well, don't know where I'll wind up yet. There is a chance I could end up in Singleton. There's a chance I could end up in Port Macquarie. There's half a chance I might be on a donkey sanctuary somewhere if I can find it. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but the plan is that we'll probably wind up hitting the road tomorrow and start winding our way north again. Thanks for your folks, for your help, folks. Keep an eye out today, tomorrow, the next, I don't know when it is. Tucker Carlson, I think Mick's just put it up. Tucker Carlson's going to interview Putin. And I believe it has already been put up in some places. There are quotes coming from it that we're reading, but it's being pulled down by various platforms that are putting it up. I don't think it's being pulled down by X, which is the Tucker Carlson channel, and it isn't on X, the Tucker Carlson channel. Rob's looking there right now. So yeah, we need to sort that out. Tucker Carlson's interview with Putin will be world-shattering. I have no doubt. Putin is going to tell a lot of truth. A lot of truth. Now, whether or not the Americans who've been hiding underneath their beds with their guns pointed out, afraid of the Russian communists for so many years, are going to believe Tucker Carlson, I don't know. But if there is one person with one platform in the world to be able to get a balanced, and I would say a balanced message out, it will be his with Vladimir Putin. So watch out for that interview. It's hopefully going to come out in the next 24, 48 hours. Who knows? But there are quotes already leaking out from it that indicates it has been done. There will be an edit process because Putin, while he does speak English, he doesn't speak English in English-speaking interviews. He speaks Russian, and it's got to be translated. So in a live interview situation, that is very difficult. You don't want to have the translator's voice, asking the questions and telling lies, because you wind up looking and hearing like you're interviewing the translator. So what they'll do is they will they'll be doing an edit and they'll be putting up captions and all that sort of stuff. That takes time. So I would expect to see it in the next 24 hours. If it has been already done, it seems like it has been. So fingers crossed, it's going to be interesting. Yeah, Tash, look, interesting. Tucker is a Zionist. Putin knows it. So is Trump, by the way. Now, there is a very large school of thought that says exactly that. That the first arrest might be just the most surprising. However, until such time as we have better intel, better access, we can only go with what we've got. And I don't know, with what's going on in Israel at the moment, Netanyahu has come out and said they're not going to stop. They're going to continue until Hamas is routed totally and completely gone from Gaza. That will give them control of Gaza. And of course, because the place is just wrecked now, it is just destroyed. The easiest thing to do would be to, I don't know, dig a channel and make another Suez Canal. That'd be the easiest thing for them to do, and it's certainly what they're up for. Yeah, look, I am unsure of the whole Jewish link to Trump. It's certainly interesting. Do I think he's a Zionist? No, I don't. Same as I don't believe every Jew is a Zionist. I don't believe every Jew is out to eat the goyim. See us put into the McDonald's burgers and the sausage. I don't believe every Jew believes that. I don't believe every Jew has that sort of a heart. I believe the ones that follow the Talmud do. But the Torah? No. I've got a lot of Jewish friends, a lot of good Jewish friends. Yeah, some of them can be a little strange at times. But for the most part, they want what we want, just the same. Leave me the fuck alone is what they want. You know? That's what they know. And that's what we all want. Just leave us alone. Stop inflicting your fines, your morality. Well, there is no bloody morality in government. We've proven that. Morality is gone. And it needs to come back. It needs to come back. And who is going to bring morality back into that place, folks? Well, I'm pretty confident the only way that we are ever going to get morality back into that place is if you step into that place. Are you moral enough? Do you have a broad enough view of the world to put aside personal interests and put Australia first? If you are, maybe you should consider doing something about that and joining with others who might do something about that. My. Canberra is an interesting place to come and visit, isn't it? And you wouldn't be at all surprised to learn they have dickhead drivers on the road here.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's ride!